Hey everyone, NoModMaster here. Welcome to settlement building tip number 17, concrete elevators. So one of the big issues I've noticed that players have when building concrete elevators is that the elevators are not even with the floors. They'll often put steps to try to make up for the difference in floor level. Concrete also only comes with short walls and does not come with any tall walls. This can make things even more difficult when trying to build them with elevators, especially if you're trying to build windows. So as you can see here, the floors are even with the elevator, and there's no gaps on the outside of the building because I decided not to snap the walls to each floor. If you snap the walls to each floor, you'll have gaps from the outside. Those gaps are caused by the height of the elevator. So to prevent them, I decided to make like a sheath. So I decided to put the walls at the very base of the building and build them all the way up. That essentially makes the floors and the elevator separate from the walls and the roof. The only downside to this method is that on the 4th floor or the 7th floor, there's always no windows because of the way the walls line up. You can kind of stick a window in the elevator itself, but the floor won't really have any windows. This doesn't bother me too much, and I think it's a small price to pay in order to make elevators work with concrete. At the end of this video, I'll show you guys a walkthrough of how I build these structures. One more thing though, I bet a lot of you are wondering how I put this wire through the concrete wall. If you've seen my settlement building tip videos before, you probably already have an idea. But with concrete, it's a little different. So what you do is you first have to place a power connector on the elevator. So you can see I always place it right there on the strip of yellow, and then you connect it to the elevator. Then, connect your elevator to the power supply. If you forget to connect your elevator to the power supply before you place it in the structure, your power connector on the elevator will become buried inside of the concrete. So don't forget that step. And there you go, pick up the elevator to place it back into the structure, and you're done. Let's go up and take a look at the roof next. So this is where the slack from the walls ends up. And depending on how many floors you build, these walls might be a little bit taller or a little bit shorter. For a 4-story building, this is how tall the walls always are on the roof. I actually like this height because it's the perfect height to hide fireworks or even a small generator. One thing you'll have to do to close off the top of the elevator is place some floor or roof tiles up here. Usually I use floor tiles, because that way I can actually eyeball them perfectly and snap them into place here. These actually aren't snapped to anything on the structure, they're snapped to each other. I eyeballed these into place by removing the walls. Now I know you're all thinking, well, if my walls don't line up with my floors, then my structure is always going to be stuck as a square, and I can't make it a different shape. That's not true, and I'll show you guys how to do that next. So as you can see here, I decided to extend the 1st and the 2nd floor, but it appears that I've extended 3 floors. That's actually an illusion because the walls are not even. What happens when you extend the structure is that the outside, yes, looks just like the other building and you can clip everything together perfectly, but the inside is very different. You end up with a vaulted ceiling on the 2nd floor, and on the 3rd floor, you get this railing that kind of overlooks that area. It kind of feels like a mall. Let's take a look at it right now. So, as you can see here, this was originally just a room, but when I added on, there is a vaulted ceiling next to this area, so I put these railings here to kind of look down in there. This would be great actually for like a restaurant or a school or a mall. It works really well architecturally. So here's where it gets tricky with the roof. So obviously you're thinking, I want to put roofs on top of these walls. No, you're going to put roofs under this wall and against those walls. Don't forget this important step. Roof tiles go under and against the walls, not on top of them. Okay, I'm going to take us down to the 2nd floor so we can check out that vaulted ceiling area. Keep in mind guys, I decided to make this video with 100% concrete pieces just to show that it can be done that way. But if you want, you can always switch out these floors with double thick wooden floors with tile and carpet to liven up the place a little bit. Okay, next, I'm going to show you guys a building walkthrough. So always start with floor tiles and then snap your elevator to your 3 floor tiles. I always start with this square structure and then I build that first before I extend it and make it into a different shape. I feel like it's just easier when building with concrete and elevators to do it that way. You could do it where you build it all at once. It would just be a little bit harder, I feel. So once you've done this, you can obviously switch out the types of flooring you want. You don't have to use the concrete bases. But essentially what's going on here is that all you are now doing is placing that second layer, which is your walls. Now it does snap to the structure, but it only snaps to the first floor. Once you start building these walls upwards, they don't really attach themselves to any other floors because they don't match. So build the 4 walls with concrete, and then you'll notice in the corner it has an opening. You'll just stick a pillar in those corners and basically line all corners of the structure with pillars to fill in that little gap. You might have also noticed that there's a giant hole below the elevator. There's also some spaces below the regular walls too. You're just going to snap some walls down there to cover up that big hole and to cover up all the other spaces so that the whole structure is smooth in unison. Now keep in mind, it takes about 6 concrete walls high to cover up a 4-story elevator, including the walls that are sunken into the ground. Alright, next let's talk about how we build the floors. Okay, for floors, you're simply just going to snap them to the elevator itself. Remember, do not snap any floors to the walls from here on out. All floors are only snapped to each other or the elevator. Never snap them to the walls, it'll screw you up. Now when building this way, you're constantly going to be thinking, oh no, there's a hole between my wall and my floor. Ignore the holes because remember, your walls are going to be like a giant sheath that goes over the building. So don't worry about any of the holes because once your walls are built, there won't be any. Well, that pretty much concludes my video for today, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.